82, the sixth emotion, we saw love, and we had a desire, which arises from love, is a tendency toward a good thing that is not yet possessed, but presently attainable. So the desire is affective state provoked by the actualization of a tendency. Well, here we have to maybe precise two terms. The term tendency the term need or want, and the term desire. There is a difference between them. Well, the tendency we saw, it is inclination, disposition, okay? Attraction, we saw that. Now, the need is an affective state through which a tendency or is manifested. So, a need is a tendency that is manifested. So when the tendency, or if you want the inclination, when it is manifested. For example, we have a tendency toward food, our instinct of eating, But that instinct of eating, that tendency, is not always manifested. For example, I have no instinct, I have no tendency to eat. Except if a friend offer me some chocolate, I will have a tendency. So the tendency is something which is not conscious, non-conscious. It is there, like an instinct, it is there, but we are not conscious. When the tendency becomes conscious, conscious, manifested conscious, there is a need. I need to eat, I feel I need to eat. The tendency, the need, that inclination becomes conscious, manifested, conscious. And now, the desire, or sometimes they call that also the craving, it is something now I am craving for the possession of something which the appetite does not presently possess. If you want, here I am conscious of a need, I need something, but here I need something precise. This thing, for example, I am hungry here. I am hungry for a steak. Oh, if I have a steak. A long time I never ate a good steak. That I have a desire, a craving for something precise. You see the difference between the first, that is a tendency toward some good, natural instinct. Secondly, that instinct is manifested. Oh, I am thirsty. Oh, I thirst. Now, I'm thirsty for a Coca-Cola. I have the desire. So the desire is precise. The object of the desire is precise. The object of the need, the want, is conscious, but is not precise. You understand that? The three levels. But now that is based on the tendency. If I have no tendency, I will have no want, I will have no desire. So what are those who are making movies, or they want to sell their
commercial.
They know
A commercial.
Yeah, commercial, all the thing, good or bad. They try to excite our instinct. Because our instinct is there. Well, as long as my instinct, my tendency is not manifested, I will not desire something. So they provoke a need. They provoke a need. For example, an instinct of pride. If you don't wear that kind of shoes or that kind of suit, you are not a gentleman. You are not you are a dinosaur women, dinosaur men. So pride, yes. But I'm not conscious of that, But the advertising or the movie are provoking something which is, the problem of pornography is here. All those things are here. Temptation is here. We have a tendency to greed, or a tendency to dominate, a tendency to sexual activity, etc., to gambling. So that is the pernicious of those some advertising. In fact, it is to exploit sexuality. You have a good example of that 30 years ago, 20 years ago, maybe you don't remember that. Marlboro, the company of cigarettes, they announced a handsome man. If you don't smoke, you're not a handsome man. But they provoke the pride of men, It was so true that a kid, to become an adult, our desire was to smoke. Happily, I never smoked a cigarette. But sometimes I imitate, it's the same for pornography, for everything, gambling. In fact, finally, advertising cannot exist if there is no some instinct. It's the provocation of some instinct. And all the industry of pornography, the movie, 3X, or a lot of things, gambling, all those things, they know that. Another example, I remember very well, they announce cigarette, but they cannot announce cigarette without a beautiful, 2-3 beautiful women. At that time, of course, it did not exist, but it was short covered, probably because it was a warm country, with a cigarette, and they are so happy, or Coca-Cola, or Budweiser. All the time, they exploit sex inclination to sell their product. That is unconscious. People are not conscious of that, but in fact, it is that. It is a kind of sublimation. How do we say subliminal? Subliminal. It is a kind of, it's the same for what happened in Rwanda. In Rwanda, during when they massacred 1.5 million people. In fact, the radio of the Colin, the Hill radio, they provoke a want of vengeance who was corresponding to aggressivity. And they provoke and they kill only by the radio. The radio provoked that. They announce the people, but it's the same for now today. The power of the internet is incredible. What happened in Hong Kong? Now it is because of the internet. Many demonstrations now happen because of the internet. So we have to provoke. Of course, we can also not work on that. We can work on the sedition of soul, But to make money, they work more on our tendency, instinct. But we must be aware of those things, because we are covered with that. Continually advertising. Sometimes it is for a simple product, but all the context is either erotic or favoring the pride of man or conformity to the society. Always something on the line. Why? Because we cannot have a desire if there is not a want, and there is no want if there is no tendency. It is the link between the three levels. Okay? Okay. Now I go to page 182. I come back. 183. 183. You have a third emotion is joy. Huh? But joy follows the desire when the good thing is actually possessed. But in fact, it's better to say enjoyment than joy. Huh? Enjoyment. Because joy is more spiritual and enjoyment is more sensible. But we can continue to say joy. But there is a spiritual joy and a physical joy, huh? Sensible joy. Okay? So a winner reserves the more joy unto the human being and not to non-rational being. Why? Because only men possess which is a spiritual power enlightened by the intellect. So as for the sensitive appetite powers are concerned, we'll now prefer the word enjoyment. In fact, when we study next week on the human act, we see that is the number 12. 12. We enjoy. We attain when you begin ordained. And after the celebration of your ordination as a priest or as a permanent deacon, you say, finally, enjoy. And you have a good banquet. We enjoy, yes. You know, celebrate. The Mass is supposed to be a celebration and a joy. The Mass must be joyful. You know, I have one of my friends. We studied together. We grew together. He died about 1 month ago. And in his will, he was a brother. In his will, he asked that at the end of the funeral, they sing the Alleluia of Handel. And they did that. It's a resurrection, the joy. You know, sometimes we forget that. Sometimes I have person will go to Mass, he said, it's a funeral home. The way we sing, the way we pray, the way we are. It's you know, celebration. Joy, emotion are part of our faith. When you go to Jerusalem and you see the Jews praying along the wall, they pray with all their body. And sometimes what they do, they dance. I saw that. They dance. Of course, men on one side, women on the other side, because the women give distraction to men. Not they pray. So on the right, women, on the left, men. That is like that. Huh? If you go to Jerusalem, you see that. Huh? But after praying, we see the old men, they dance together, because the song were sung of with music, with dancing. It's a dance. You know, joy. Joy is an emotion, and that emotion is expression, the joy of our own person. The joy of Evangel, the gospel, the letter of Francis, the joy of the gospel, the joy. You know what Nietzsche said about Catholic, about Christian? You see, you band again of sad people. To be a Christian is to be sad. Is to be. There is no joy for you. And sometimes, you know, when you know if you see the movie Babette Feast, yeah, or you see the movie Fanny and Alexander, that is very, very interesting also to understand what I will say to you. Fanny and Alexander. It is in Sweden, and the mother, I don't want to. Finally, the mother, she became a widow, and she married a bishop. And now their life changed completely for the children. Horrible, 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 horrible. No joy at all, no joy. A religion completely like Jansenism. No smile, no laugh, nothing. You know, that you know, how we can be at the service of God without no joy. Father Lacordaire, it's interesting. Father Lacordaire is a Dominican, illustrious Dominican in France. He was a politician, eminent politician, and he became a Dominican. And when he entered the novitiate, he said to the master of novitiate, those novices are not serious, they laugh all the time, they have fun. He was scandalized because they were joyful. He was a serious man, a politician. And they were, the master of, he said, yeah, joy. What St. Paul says, be always joyful. Sometimes we forget that. And we give about religion a face of very stern, sad, penance, a God of terror. That is the picture many people have. Many people have. Hatred is another feeling, is the contrary of opposing of love, aversion, dislike, sadness, etc. You have emotion also coming from the irascible appetite. The first is hope. Of course, here I don't speak about the theological virtue. I speak about that hope, human hope. Okay, human hope. When, for example, you begin you create a business, then you hope to succeed. If you don't hope, don't create the business. If you begin your study in philosophy, in theology, to become a priest or to become a permanent deacon, because you hope. If at first sight I will never arrive, why we are here, Hope is very important in everything. You marry, you have hope that there will some happiness in your family, some children, etc. Second virtue is the courage. But not everything is easy on earth, so we have to fight, and we need the virtue of fortitude. We saw that, courage, fortitude, strength. But if we cannot attain the good, or the good is impossible because it's too difficult, we despair. We have to start with despair. Fear when we are in front of the difficulty. For example, I was never a soldier, but if someone among you were at war, nobody was at war, okay? Well, a soldier can be very courageous, but he can have fear also. In 1914, where they have many times attacked with bayonet, it is I or you. So that is fear. You have one chance of two to be killed or to kill. You have no choice. Okay? Fear. But it can be a soldier, courageous and having fear. But you don't act by fear. You act with fear. So fear is not the motive of your action. Okay? And anger toward the evil or the something hard to be. So if you go to the pages I give you, just after, I give you two series of pages. You have first motion of concupiscence, appetite, you have that. Okay? Well, that comes from the Father Verneau. He's a French, he was a Monsignor after, a French author of philosophy. And here that helps to understand the link between the motion of concupiscible appetite. Love implies hatred. We cannot love without hatred. If I love God, I detest Satan. No? Okay? Toward the good, if the good is absent, I desire it. If it is present, I enjoy it. Joy for man. If toward the evil, if the evil is absent, I have aversion. Aversion for that. And when it is present, I am sad. So sad. Now the irascible appetite. Two possibilities. First, if the good is difficult, or if it is an arduous evil to avoid. Well, the first case, if we can attain the arduous good, we have hope. But if it is impossible, it is a despair. Despair. And toward the arduous evil, anger, if it is the object is present, what happens? Maybe we have to be audacious, to fight. Audacity, courage, fortitude. And when it is absent, then we have a kind of fear. We fear. Is this, when we are arduous, even some gains sometimes are arduous, no? Some exam. Alors, when we are at class, you do your best, no? But before coming, you have to say, oh la la. Okay. If you go to another page, the possible linkage between passion in the case of arduous good. Here it is only a possibility, because there is a lot of combination possible, a lot. Huh? Here you only to see two cases of link, the link between emotion, between passion. Huh? Love to the good, hatred for the obstacle. Okay, they are correlative. Huh? I cannot say I love God, but I don't detest Satan. If I love God, I detest every enemy of God. Huh? Okay? Love of God. And that love provokes in me a desire for the good. Huh? Okay? And at the same time, for the obstacle, for the evil, aversion at the same time. You know? If if the obstacle is not surmountable, I cannot fight and be victorious. What I switch on the other side. And I have despair, fear, and no anger because I don't fight. And finally, I am sad. But if I can triumph, there is hope, audacity in front of the obstacle. And when I am in contact, I fight. Anger, ira, and the word irascible is there, ira. And when I triumph, enjoyment. Enjoyment. So, well, that is only, it's not absolute. Huh? It's only a possibility of combination. We have a lot of different kind of combination. Okay? Page 182. So you have all, we cover, you have all the detail of what we have on that. Now we have a lot of perfect idea of emotion, but we have the essential of what is emotion. Emotion, first, knowledge of something, and something as a good or as an evil, absence of good. And that provoked in me a modification of my physiology. I have, so that the component of and the two kind of emotion attached to concupiscible appetite, to desire to have something to enjoy, and the emotion attached to irascible, to fight. You know? That is about emotion. And now we have to study the appetite at the level of the will. Now we study up to now only the sense appetite. We study concupiscible and irascible. Now, from this hour, now we work on the intellectual appetite we call the will. And that is important because of free will. So when we speak about man, not only we speak about will, but we speak about free will. That means about freedom. That chapter is excessively important. Why? Because first for yourself, but for your future ministry. I am a whole teacher. I taught in public school. I taught in many places. Many questions come up many times. What is evil in the world? Suffering. And the certain, are we free? What is freedom? The problem of freedom, especially with adolescents, 18, 17, 18, 19 years, they are preoccupied by the question of freedom. Okay, so St. Thomas give us a very clear explanation. I will try to communicate that in my own words the best I can. And when you'll be a deacon, you will go directly to the Summa. You read the whole Summa. That is a dream. But I give you the essential. You have all the elements. Okay? So page 186, number 28, volition. Volition comes from the Latin velle. The verb to will in Latin is velle. I have it. Okay? And you have the word volitum, etc. It is an irregular verb in Latin. Volo, velle is an irregular verb. Well, forget that. But what is important, that when we speak will in English, in Latin the word for that is voluntas. So voluntas is the will. Many words in English expressing will are called voluntary. Voluntary. Okay? Benevolent, etc. Okay? So what is the will? Well, the will is the rational or intellectual appetite in man. It is an appetite, but an appetite for the good known through the intellect, but not any kind of good. It is what we, of course, even to eat ice cream can be the object of my will, because I will not go to eat ice cream without my will. No? I'm not a cat. That means all my sense appetite, when they are satisfied, and I am awake, wide awake, I use my intellect. And therefore, all those are also object of my will. And they are moral or immoral. If, for example, you go to the meal, you eat. Well, it is, you satisfy your appetite, sense appetite. But at the same time, it is a human act for you. It's not only an animal action, because we are rational animals. Therefore, when you eat, not only you satisfy your appetite, your sensible appetite, you satisfy also your intellectual appetite. That means you eat because you will to eat. You will. And because you will to eat, your action has a moral dimension. And to prove that, as a Christian, we make a prayer, we bless the meal. It is to prove that what we do that not as a beast, an animal, we do that as a rational being. In fact, all action we do with reflection and with the will, even material action, those actions are moral or immoral. They have an ethical aspect, a moral aspect. That is very, very important. In that, I stay on the level of philosophy, but if I go on the level of theology, everything we do, even the simple thing we do, weed the floor, wash the dishes, if we do that with the will to accomplish the will of God, my will is united to the will of God, that is holiness, that is grace. Well, another parenthesis, it's not philosopher. The Blessed Virgin Mary, what she did in Nazareth. Did she study theology? Did she read, she taught? No. She was a mother, a spouse. She gardened, she had a garden, everybody has a garden. She had goat, sheep. Is the reason why Jesus was able to speak about sheep. She was able to sew. She was able to cook. She did material thing. She satisfied the appetite of Jesus and the appetite of Saint Joseph. I was in Africa, I asked, did Mary prepare good meal to Saint Joseph? Oh, wait, yes. Yes. That means, that is important, huh? Because sometimes we consider only the extraordinary thing. You know? In philosophy, even at the level of philosophy, every little action we do with our intellect and our will are ethical. They have a moral dimension. Okay? So, évidemment, as a theologian, we can speak about the grace, but you see, I don't speak about that. No? But even at the level of, as a pagan philosopher, as a pagan philosopher, I can say every action you do as a human being is as a moral dimension, ethical dimension. Ethical dimension. Okay. So volition is the determinant. Volition is the action of the will. The will is the subject, the power. Volition is the action, is the act. And the object is the good. that here, and now we speak about the good, okay? As the intellect is the supreme cognitive power in man, so the will is the supreme appetite in man, controlling all human behavior. All human behavior. That means everything I do with my reason is a human action. And because it is a human action, it is moral, as a moral dimension. Interesting here. The intellect is the supreme cognitive power, and the will is the supreme appetite power. Here you have St. Thomas and St. Bonaventure. St. Thomas affirmed that the most important faculty is the intellect, and St. Bonaventure says is the will, because it says after death, what is the most important virtue in heaven? Love. And love from the heart, from the will. But St. Thomas can answer, okay, Bonaventure, it's true what you say, but there is no love if there is no knowledge. So both are right. One insists on one aspect, the other insists on the other aspect. In fact, I will say both are complementary. We cannot separate the intellect and the will. Okay? It is what we study next class. When we see that every action, moral action, every act of human mind, of man, is necessarily made with the influence of the intellect and the influence of the will, continually. Secondly, as the intellect is the spiritual power, so the will is the spiritual power. My will is spiritual, like my intellect. A proof of that, my will can control my appetite. My appetite, for example, I am thirsty for Coca-Cola, but I say no. My doctor does not want I drink sugar, so I master. It's the people who follow a diet, what they use? They use their will. And when they don't observe their diet, why? Because they have a feeble will, a weak will. No? Okay? So it is spiritual. The will is spiritual. The object of the will be the good as universal. So to obey, for example, I will to obey the God's law or not, that is not sensible. The object of my will can be totally detached from matter. For example, my salvation, the salvation of the soul, etc. All those things are totally detached from matter. My will is a spiritual faculty like my intellect. Now, what is the object of the will? We saw before, subject, act, object. So there is no act of the subject without an object. If I see nothing, I don't see. If I will nothing, I don't will. If I smell nothing, I don't smell. I know my activity through the object I attain. If I attain no object, Suppose a child was born in the mine. He has never saw the light. So he has eyes, but he cannot see. Not because he has not the power, because there is no object. When you wake up in the night and there is total obscurity, and when you go to camping in the mountain, there is no light, no moon, no star, nothing. Do you see anything? You see nothing. You don't see. When you see I see nothing, that means I see nothing, I don't see. To see, you must have an object. If you see nothing, you don't see. A blind man, he sees nothing, he does not see. So, spiritual or rational goods to attain, and rational and spiritual evil to avoid. All purely spiritual or rational goods are sought by the will alone. Of course, my sense appetite cannot desire salvation, eternal salvation. And rational and spiritual evil are rejected also by the will. For example, the will seeks justice, truth, order, immortality, and the like. For example, life. When we saw that at the beginning of the first class. We have our natural tendency for life, for survival. Huh? Okay? And 8, injustice, deceit, chaos, and death. All those reality material, no, all those reality are spiritual. That means the object of my will can be a spiritual reality, detached from any sense knowledge. Of course, we saw that we know everything through analogy, but the thing itself we don't know. Well, a spiritual thing we don't know through our senses. We know only through our intellect. Detached from contingency, from time and space. Abstraction. So, however, the will's object are not limited to spiritual thing, of course. It is a spiritual faculty, but I can will spiritual object, of course, spiritual object, but I can will also material object, temporal object. I can want buy a good car. I can want to eat apple pie. You know, the object of my will can be either spiritual, but also material. That means the object of my sense appetite can be also the object of my will. Interesting, huh? The object of my sense appetite. For example, I want to drink a glass of vodka or a glass of wine, for example. That is sensible, my sense appetite. But my will is also willing that, or not willing that. My sense appetite can say, I want to drink Coca-Cola, it's warm, I'll need that, but your will says, no, it's not good for your diabetes, don't. And finally, you obey or you don't obey. But the big decision, it is from your will. It is not from your senses. Your senses cannot decide. That is interesting. That means what is to be free is to be able to control my senses. My sense appetite. That means my will is superior, is spiritual, is above, it can control, like your soul is spiritual, and control your body, which is material. Secondly, physical goods to attain and physical evil to avoid. Well, that is clear. Huh? There is no problem for that. But I go to the next paragraph. But when the will acts in the sphere of sensible material, to drink Coca-Cola or to eat a hot dog, because it sees reasonableness in this physical, there is something reasonable, rational. It is rational for me to eat a hot dog. It is rational for me to drink Coca-Cola. You know? It is irrational for me to eat a stone. You understand? Huh? So I have to, at the same time, when I use my intellect to see that is rational or that is not rational, in fact, I exercise the virtue of prudence. I judge if it is conform or not to my nature. Maybe I will like to fly like a bird, you know. But my reasons say don't fly because you have no wings, you are not a bird. Oh, I will die, I will die, thank you. No? If you fly, you will, against your nature, you will break your neck or your legs or you will kill yourself, you know. In fact, we have to use our reason continually in our action, even in our material action. When you prepare a meal and you cook, you use your reason. When you serve a table, you cut the meal in little pieces, you use your reason. In fact, our reason is pervading and soaking everything we do. And the more we act reasonably, the more we are mature. A mature man is a man able to use his reason. A child is not able to do that. A child will follow his instinct more than he will use his reason. And his parent must complete, must say, hey, be reasonable. Huh? If you don't control your children, maybe they will have a big glass of milk, a big glass like that. and they cannot drink everything. It's too much for their stomach. So you have to say, use your reason. Be reasonable. Did you say that many times to your children? Be reasonable. Okay? That means use your reason in everything. I continue. On the sight of food might arouse a person constitutional appetite because food is pleasing to eat. But he wills to eat it only if he sees that it is reasonable here and now to do that. For example, you arrive, you have a good appetite, you are traveling, you stop at a restaurant, and in the menu there is steak and there is fish, tuna. Oh, I am in Idaho, I am in Wyoming, there's good meat there. So I want to eat meat. But your reason say, be careful, we are inland, it is Friday today. So no meat, eat tuna or lobster. You will do a good penance. It's funny, huh? On Good Friday, you are not allowed to eat hot dog, but you are allowed to eat lobster. But you have to take the spirit of the law. That's a good example to see. We have to use the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law. Okay? But you use your reason. Your dog cannot do that. Your cat cannot do that. Your cat cannot say, well, see a mouse now today, I will not attack the mouse because it is Friday. He cannot control his instinct. We can control. For example, the institution of marriage, it is to control our instinct. Because to give life is so important. We cannot give life anyway, anytime. You have to respect some law. We call it chastity, we call it the law of marriage. You know? Every activity, human activity, is controlled by a law. Law of the state, law of medicine. For example, you cannot abuse something without becoming sick. You know? If you drink too much Coca-Cola, after a certain time you have problems, you know, in your life. That means we have to respect nature. But why? Because we have the intellect and we can reason. Because of that, we are responsible, even for our material action. And as a Christian, every material action has some merit. Because when I do that, I do the will of God, the duty in life. Saint Teresa of Lisieux, the Blessed Virgin Mary, Saint Joseph, they never did miracle. Mary never did a miracle in her life. Saint Joseph never did a miracle in his life. And they are the greatest saints. You know, but why? Because if you put your reason in material reality, you humanize those material realities. To eat is a material reality, animal reality, but because you use your mind, you humanize that. It becomes something human, moral, ethical. Okay? That is the grandeur of man. It is there we exercise our dominion. You have the dominion because you have the power to control ourselves. And we have it nice soon to the idea of freedom, what is freedom. Okay, all behavior also, we control our behavior. I go to page 187. So we have a faculty we call the will. That means we tend toward the good. Toward the good. It's appetite for the good known through the intellect. Even my sense, even the good things known through my sense, I can will them. Why? Because I know them not only through my senses, I know them through my intellect. Coca-Cola is something I know through my senses. But not only through, I know Coca-Cola through my senses, but I know what is Coca-Cola. I know it is good or not for my health, and I can use my reason, I can use my will to decide to drink or not to drink, you know. That means, as long as we are awakened, full, wide awake, we are responsible for every action we do. When we are attentive, of course. because the conditions to be attentive, to reflect. Sometimes we forget that we have a tendency to search always what is extraordinary. To do moral action is to do only something good with my intellect, my will. That is a human action, is a moral action. To cook in the kitchen is a moral action. To sweep the floor is a moral action. Okay. Now, nature of the free will. The free will is an ability, a quality, a habit, characterizing man in the voluntary activity of choosing or not choosing, of acting or non-acting, choosing a limited good when it is presented to him. Such voluntary activity is always called free choice and free decisions. Okay? So the object of the will is the good. I will explain that. After that I will work on to explain what is the will. But first we have to know what is the good. So we have many kinds of good. The universal or supreme good. That means a good absolutely perfect, able to satisfy in every conceivable aspect. We can think about that. We have an appetite of good. Our intellect is open to the infinite, we saw that. So, the good able to satisfy plainly my intellect and my will, that good is the perfect good. Okay? And when I am in front of that, am I free? In every action we do what we are searching for? The good. In fact, in everything we decide that under the aspect of good, as a participation of that perfect good. Okay? We have a tendency toward the perfect good. Thus, I am not free to tend toward the perfect good. I am not free to tend toward the perfect happiness. Every man on earth has a thirst, a hunger for happiness. Think about St. Augustine. Okay? This appetite toward the perfect good is inscribed in my human nature. Having an intellect able to grasp the concept of universal good, having a will, a spiritual appetite tending toward the possession of the unique, infinite, satisfying good, I am very important. I am determined by my nature, very important to tend toward it. And we call that voluntas ut natura, the will as nature. My will by nature is tending toward the perfect good, as my intellect by nature is tending toward the truth, the perfect truth. No? I am not free with regard of the perfect good, but I am free with regard of the finite good. No finite good can determine my will, because that voluntas ut libera. Well, I will explain that here. So we saw that the will of voluntas, I will use the word Latin, voluntas, okay? In front of the perfect good, I have no freedom. We call that voluntas ut natura. That means as nature. Ut in Latin means as here, as nature. So voluntas ut natura. As nature, natura. There is no freedom. Oh la la. That means man, that is very serious. That means man by nature is not free.
What's the pagan philosopher define as the perfect good?
Plato speaks about that, the perfect good. Aristotle also. The perfect good is a good able to satisfy completely all my desire, all my desire for justice, for truth, for happiness, for love, etc. It is the same like for the intellect. I am open to any kind of truth. I want to know everything. I will never finish to know. I will never finish to tend toward the perfect good. I will not attain it on earth. Sure. Why? Why on earth I cannot attain the perfect good?
It's spiritual.
Yes. Because we will die. And death is the big problem for fun. If you have a party, you receive a call, you say, I have a bad news, and your son was killed on the highway, the fun is finished. Death is a proof that we cannot attain the perfect good on earth. But we have the tendency. I give you an analogy. The analogy I find very good. It is the compass. You know the compass tends toward the north, magnetic north. And by the way, you know where is the magnetic north? Huh?
Norway.
In Canada. And you know where Santa Claus lives? In Canada. So if you want to send a letter to Santa Claus, I give you his address. It's very simple. You write Santa Claus, Canada. Be sure Santa Claus will answer you. It's not a joke, it's true what I tell you. If your little great son write a letter to Santa Claus, ho, 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 Canada, Santa Claus will answer. They answer the post office in Canada with volunteer people. Lastly, there were 25,000. They answer every letter.
Oh, that's nice.
And you know why they do that? Because they find, I told that in the other class, they find a lot of problems. Because the children, when they write a letter, they have something very serious to say. And most of the time it's